In my last video, I shared a sneak peek to my plans to completely transform this foyer space in our 1800s home. I decided to tackle a big project using a gorgeous damask stencil, and in today's video you're going to see the big reveal of how much the room has completely been transformed. And then I'm also going to give you a lot of tips and tricks and give you a very comprehensive tutorial, so to say, on how to achieve this look in your home if it's something you're also brave enough to tackle. Okay, before we dive in to the whole stenciling process, I wanted to give you a look at the room, where it started. But as you can see, the walls are just pure white, very plain. This room is the entryway to our home, so it's the first room that you see when you walk in every day. And I was ready for a change, so let's jump in to this stenciling project that took me 7 days to complete. But I'm going to share everything that I learned with you along the way in case this is something that you want to tackle in maybe a very small room of your house or a big room like I did here. So you may be looking at the color thinking, well, that just looks white, but this color up against my pure white walls is about a shade darker, so it is just enough for the stencil to have prominence, but without it being too bold and something that was going to show mistakes, blemishes. So this is what I opted for. I do recommend, if you're going to take the time to do a big project like this with a stencil, I recommend that you at least go a shade darker than your base color, because if you were to just play with the enamels, such as a flat base with a eggshell stencil, yes, you will see it, but only if the light hits it just right. And honestly, to me, that would not have been worth all the work that I put into this room. So there's just a little tip for you, something to consider. I chose this damask style of stenciling because I wanted something that was going to be timeless, something very classic, and something that I wasn't going to get sick of. So, by the way, I will have this linked below for you, this exact stencil that I used. Just find the word more, and that will open up all of the items that I have listed out for you in the description. Everything that I think will be helpful if you choose to take on this project yourself. And this is when I realized I was not going to be able to complete the pattern all along the upper portion of the room. Every other section I was going to have to leave blank until the very end, until I could either get some help holding the bottom half of the stencil to the wall so that everything lined up cleanly. And here you see me attempting the first corner of many. And what I learned here is wrapping it around, trying to kind of get into the corners and the other side as well, did not work the best. What I would recommend doing instead of what you're seeing me do here is choose kind of a stopping point up to the corner. You could even tape it off if you needed to, but I kind of recommend finding a spot in the pattern where it would look somewhat organic, stopping in certain spots and then just kind of doing the same on the other side of the wall. And then what I actually end up doing at the end is going back through the corner areas of the room where there's any big gaps, and I just kind of freehand shapes in that look like the pattern just by visually looking at them. Or if you think that you can use the stencil to just pinpoint certain areas within the design, then I would suggest doing that. But moral of the story is don't do what you see me doing here, because it did not work well. It was messy and it bled and it smudged. So there you go. Tip number 3 for doing corners with a stencil. Well, the next important element about stenciling a room is that you're going to have to clean your stencil often. If you only bought one, that is, which I did, because these stencils run about $65 a piece. So what happens when the paint starts to build up is obviously you're not able to get nice definition with the pattern. And let me tell you, this happens very quickly. So I found myself washing this stencil. I think I had to wash it 7-8 times through this whole process, and it was by far the worst thing about this whole project was having to wash this thing. So I tried several different methods to try and make this process go a little bit quicker and easier, and I am using Crud Cutter because I have used this in the past, and paint has just melted off of things when I have used it, like metal things, handles, things like that. So I figured, well, it would probably come off of plastic just as easily since it's a slippery surface. So what I like to do was kind of soak the stencil in the Crud Cutter, take a brush, a softer bristled brush, and work it down in. And then you kind of just have to keep scrubbing away and continue using Crud Cutter or whatever your cleaner of preference is. I had to do this in my bathroom because it was still winter here, so I had no other place. But another thing I want to tell you is don't use super hot water, even though it works really good at helping you to loosen up the paint off the stencil, but it will warp your stencil because I had some spots where mine did that. So another thing that ended up working even better is I soaked my stencil in the Crud Cutter within a plastic bag, and I let that soak in there, and really sealing off any air or anything like that really helped the next day me to get it cleaner. It seemed like it was a much quicker process than the prior ones. So this was definitely the biggest pain point of the whole project, but it had to be done. And here you can see I'm starting this section with a freshly cleaned stencil, and that was always the best. It just came out so nice and clean. So I suggest kind of planning on where you want your stencil to look the nicest, and make sure that is when your stencil is the cleanest. Also, something that was hard for me to figure out within the first couple sections is how to line up the stencil so that it overlaps. There weren't really any like indication marks on the stencil, but there is a little graph that comes with the stencil on a piece of paper that shows you the designs of where it is going to overlap. And then of course, just after playing with it for a while, you figure it out, and then once you've got it, you've got it. But that was a roadblock that took me a good 20-30 minutes to figure out how to overlap and line it up so that the pattern flows. So something for you to think about if you find yourself getting frustrated with that. I did, and I'm sure I am not alone in that. All right, my friends, I am very slowly but surely making my way around the room with this stencil. And as you can see, we're at a light switch, and rarely did I get lucky with all of these holes in the stencil that it would pop right through. So you just have to do the best that you can, trying to keep the stencil flat in those areas where it's bumped up, where something's blocking it, like a light switch. But I hope that you're finding this video informative and helpful so far, and maybe even inspiring. Like I said at the beginning of this video, that if you are brave enough to tackle this project, it really does turn out beautifully, and it is very budget friendly. I think this whole room cost me, I want to say $120, $130 around there, with paint and supplies and the stencil, of course. So extremely budget friendly if you're comparing it to the cost of wallpaper, which can be astronomical. So if you've got the time, the patience, and you don't mind something very tedious and frustrating at times, I definitely recommend this stenciling process over wallpaper. But I still cannot wait to show you guys the big reveal and how much this room has changed. It's amazing. I love walking into my house now. It's so cozy and inviting. It's just amazing how much character this stenciling gave to this once very bland and white plain foyer. Okay, and here's what I ended up deciding to do to complete these sections that were left all around the room. I just decided to cut the stencil. It was going to make things so much easier, and to be honest, by the end of this project, I was ready to cut the stencil up and throw it away and never see it again. I know that sounds dramatic, but this was just so challenging that I honestly had no bad feelings about cutting this stencil up, because I knew I probably was never going to do this again, at least not for a very, very, very long time. Okay, it is time to decorate the room, and I'm going to do some fun DIYs and upcycle some of the old pieces that I had in here, like this shelf that I had thrifted and placed a IOD transfer on. It just needed to be a little bit more simple now that the walls are a lot busier. So I'm just going to give it a fresh coat of paint in the same color that the stencil is. When lights go out. The next little DIY I thought would be fun was to do something exciting with these sconce shades that I had in the foyer. So I thought I would just use the remaining part of the stencil and try and spray paint some color onto them and see how that turned out. And I tell myself, you'll be back again. When the stars are aligned, we will dance in the meadow on our favorite place. When spring is coming, poor lighting, but I thought maybe you'd want to come to the third floor with me where I keep all of my treasures. Let me show you also where the swan table is. Safe and sound. I do love this table, but I thought it would be fun to just try something new. We can always move it back down if we don't like it, but how fun is it to just reimagine a space and try some new things in it that normally you wouldn't have used. All right, we're in my third storage here. I think what I was going to grab is a tall freestanding brass lamp. If I can find it, here it is. We were thinking this would look cute by the sofa. There it is right here. And what else? I wonder if I should bring the wisteria tree down. It'd be fun for spring. Okay, I'm gonna get this down and then we'll keep decorating.
Is in a stream. The ocean called for you and me. Still, I'm in this game, but without my closest friend. It's leaving now. I waited here, but nothing came. So I close my eyes, 'cause you reflect in everything. It's shining through. It's shining.